Welcome to Construction Champions Podcast, where we are burning the house down and rebuilding it twice a week. I'm your host, Nussbaum, and I am here to help you become the champion that you're meant to be. Along with our amazing guests along the way, we will provide you with the resources, the latest and greatest. You will sit down with disruptors in the construction industry. And my goal from day one has always been to change the mindset around the construction industry. No more where we let the 3% of bad apes dictate the entire reputation of. Welcome back, Construction Champions. I'm your host, Nussbaum, and wherever you're listening, whether it's on YouTube or any of the amazing podcast platforms we're on, or now we are on Reese Across America Radio, I want to welcome you here, where we talk about the construction industry, business, and how to change the mindset around the industry. And you don't just show up for me, you show up for all of our amazing guests who can help get you to where you want to be. And today is no different. I am super excited to have our guest with us here today. Fyfe, it is fantastic to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, before we dive into it and I ask you the $1 million question, why don't you introduce yourself to all the construction champions out there?
Yeah. So I'm Fyfe Barraclough. I'm based up in Vancouver, Canada, and I work one-on-one with construction, trades, home service-based business owners, both as a business coach, but I'd almost call it like a obstacle remover, whatever that shows up as, and I'm sure we'll get more into that, but really helping bridge the gap between knowledge and execution. So I see a lot of business owners kind of know what to do, but they're not doing the things, and there's obstacles getting in the way from them executing what they know would be important to grow their business. And a lot of that has come from my experience. I had a painting company back in the day. I had an HVAC cleaning company that I sold a couple of years ago. And I've kind of bridged that experience in with coaching and mental fitness coaching and just helping business owners level up and perform at a higher level, both for themselves, their family, but also their teams.
I love it. And yeah, after watching some of your YouTube videos, I don't think I would use the term business coach personally. Seems a little bit more in depth into stuff around it, because I think we have a lot of the same principles on not just business. There's a lot of personal stuff that comes in. So one of the things that excites me about this conversation today, so I'm going to dive right in there. I'm going to ask the $1 million question, and that is, what makes a construction champion?
I think for me, I was thinking about this before I jumped on. It is a big question, but I think for me, a lot of it comes down to how you're leading yourself. And that becomes a critical part of being a great business owner, a champion in the industry. And I think it's something that doesn't get talked about as much. I think a lot of the content that I see out there is really focused on the nuts and bolts of this is what has to happen in your business. Here are the tools and structures that are needed to have success, which is absolutely necessary. That knowledge is really, really important, and you need to have those fundamentals in the business. And I think based on a lot of the type of people that I'm working with, they're kind of in that 1 to 3 million. Some are up kind of 5-6 million. So that they've built enough of a foundation that they know what they're doing. They have some of the systems in place, but to get to that next level, there's this next layer of leadership and next layer of identity as a business owner, really, in order to achieve to get to that next stage. So for me, a lot of that comes back to how are you managing yourself? How are you leading yourself? How are you growing and understanding how you get in your own way, so that trickles down to your team and you can develop the company that and the potential that's actually there.
I love it. This is one of my favorite subjects, and you're absolutely right. It does not get talked about enough, because you can have the foundation, you can have all that, but if you're not personally capable, physically, mentally, have the discipline to be able to execute the most best way laid out plan can go to crap really, really fast. And there's just not enough conversations. Like you said, everybody wants to talk about the nuts and bolts of business. But what really gets those nuts and bolts moving is yourself as the leader of that and being able to take care of yourself. And there's a lot of trends out there right now with all of this. So I'm glad to have an expert on here to really start to fill us in. What does that look like as a business owner sitting there thinking, this has been super hard. I have a foundation, but I am stressed. I am overworked. I'm out of shape. And I just don't know if I can physically and mentally do this.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Like when you're in that state of overwhelm, you're burnt out, you're redlining and you're just holding it together. And I think like I've been there 100%. I've gone through burnout a couple times, and a lot of my clients are the same thing, but they're high performers. Like they're capable at running at a very high level for a long period of time. And from the outside looking in, most people are like, you're holding it together. You're looking like the business is good. It's growing. So there's a lot of signals of like, it's working, but it's just not sustainable. And often there's a point at which there is some kind of breaking point. And for some people, it's their wife calling them out, be like, you're not, like I had one client, how is it worded? It's like, I want the old you back, is what the wife said to one of my clients. And it was just like, oh man, like something's not right. We got to make some changes. For some guys, it's a health thing. They realize that their health is not there. But a lot of it kind of stems back from feeling like the bottleneck and burnout, overwhelmed, that kind of those are kind of the signals. And I think really being able to step back and address some of the underlying root causes for that is really important. And that I think is what gets missed. And the things that had you be successful, that got you from zero to where you are today, to that burnout point, those same things that had you be successful are not the same things that will allow you to get to that next stage. So there's a lot of letting go of your identity and the skills and the things that got you there, that default mode that you now have to switch and find these new kind of leadership and identity focused things around your business as a business owner to really lean into. So happy there's definitely more there. Mental fitness is a big component of how I coach guys through this, and owners through this, but yeah, it's hard.
Hard. Oh, it's a business is not for everybody. It's not for the faint of heart. I think like one thing that comes to mind when I'm listening to you talk is I start to think about the way we go about it when we start to get to those break points. And a lot of times we go more in reverse than we go forward. Like we try to go back to something that feels comfortable, but what we really need to do is we need to reach out and go towards the uncomfortable to get comfortable again. But like that's not in our nature to do that kind of stuff. And then that leads to even more bottlenecks because we end up going in reverse. We go back to how we were doing it at 3 million when we're at 5 because you were comfortable there, and it just completely breaks your business.
I think there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot to unpack with what you shared there. And at the heart of a lot of challenges in business is discomfort. And what I've seen both in myself as in building my business and the other businesses, but also with clients, is everybody has different strategies for dealing with discomfort and uncertainty. And that's what can create all the challenges. So in some of the mental fitness work that I do, we really focus on some of the patterns of self-sabotage. So some people are avoiders. They have a really hard time with conflict. They avoid that unpleasantness that comes with it. Or they avoid tasks that make them feel bored or tedious or whatever it is, but they procrastinate and just avoid certain things in the business. For some people, it's they're controllers, so very different. There's an anxiety-based need to have control of everything. So letting go and delegating can be really, really difficult because the discomfort and anxiety that comes up around that. And there's a bunch more of these archetypes. My top one is a pleaser. I want to make sure everybody's happy, which means I give everything to everybody else. And then I burn out and I'm resentful of everybody else because I gave too much and didn't get anything in return. But there's these like archetypal ways that I think we can all relate to. And they all rear their heads when we're in fear, discomfort, uncertainty. And that usually happens at this stage because the things that worked got you to here. And now there's this new stage of like, I don't know what to do, or I'm so burnt out, I'm not making decisions properly. Like you're just in that scarcity, fear, negative based side of our brain. So it's like, how do we see those patterns, course correct, give ourselves enough space so that we can actually start operating and taking a different track? As you said, like we need different tools and a different approach.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't know, you're the professional here. What category exactly Ron Nussbaum here would fall in? Being that I was in the Marine Corps, I'm a pretty aggressive personality. I tend just to burn it all down and make it so it's not even an option. Like that no longer exists. We have to go to the next objective here. And a lot of times, like, it can be very rash and very like I think a lot of times it's the most painful route you can possibly take to get there. But for me, like how I just mentally process things is like, if it's no longer of use, like we need to move forward. It just needs to not be an obstacle. And I'd have to say some of our listeners are probably definitely like that. So what would you say about that?
Yeah. So I'm I'll share a couple thoughts of what might be showing up. So there's a couple other archetypal sabotaging patterns. One is the hyperachiever, and the hyperachiever, especially in Western culture, is actually quite valued. They are the go-getters. They're very A-type. They're very driven, very challenge focused. They'll lean into challenges. It sounds like that's kind of like you. Like discomfort isn't a huge thing, but you're ready to like battle, like break down doors, like get to the next thing. But that underlying pattern can be a trap long term because you're constantly chasing the next milestone. And that peace and fulfillment and happiness is a conditional thing. It's like I'll be happy, I'll have space, I'll be fulfilled when fill in the blank. But that mile marker, that finish line keeps moving, which puts us in this perpetual state of chasing, which is very common for business owners. Like we chase, that's part of our drive, but it does come at a cost. And what was really interesting for me when I first started getting into this work was that style of moving in a way can be limiting because that sense of achievement and success and moving forward is a big part of our identity. And I'm this way too. I want to achieve, that's important to me. And because my ego and identity is pretty tied to that, I will actually set limits on goals and vision, because if I don't achieve that, that's a huge threat to how I see myself. So there's this like sneaky glass ceiling that some people will place because they're so hyper focused on achievement. They have to hit it, that they actually lower the bar enough so they know they hit it. But then they're kind of chasing. Yeah. So each of these things has an underlying strength as well, I should add. Like there are absolutely gifts here, but when we get over indexed on it, when we're burnt out, we just lean into it too much. And 5, 10 years, 15 years down the road, we're like, what happened? Like, I'm not where I thought I would be, and I'm not happy, and something's off. So that would be one thing. And that's definitely really common for business owners. We talked about the controller a little bit, to like wanting to have control of and be in the driver's seat. That might be there for you. I don't know. But another sneaky one that I've seen a lot with certain business owners is they call it the hyper rational. So again, over indexing on being hyper analytical, extremely logical, and to a detriment. And often this shows up in like personal relationships where it's like people will call you like the robot, or like there's friction that happens in like a romantic relationship because you're problem solving the thing and they're just like, I just want you to listen. I just need some empathy here. I don't need the problem solved and doesn't need to be fixed. And sometimes that it's more in like personal relationships, which can also show up with teams, because if you're working with somebody that's really not analytical, that can create some friction. So again, I want to talk with you way more before we like got into it. And there is an assessment that I can share that will help you identify those things. But the, like, I guess the overarching thing I would share is we each have something that gets in our own way. And how do you start to see what that is? Because the costs of it are really, really high, both in your business, but also just like your personal fulfillment and happiness and wellness too.
100%, man. And the reason I brought that up is because 4 years ago, I went down this journey. Like I was just not happy with myself, which in everything around me. But I had created it. I knew that. And everything that you said was real for me. And I had to figure out how to process all of that and then be able to figure out how to be able to use what is great about how I am, but also to not necessarily use it in my personal life. My son would be 7 years old in a couple of days, and I want to see him grow up. It's one of the reasons I'm building a business, is to be able to spend time with him, but then we don't. And like, that just makes us miserable. So now I prioritize this stuff, and I understand. I look at life completely different from a mental perspective, from a health perspective. And it's why what you do is so important, because not everybody just wakes up one morning and goes, I am miserable and I need to fix this. And they realize that they're the problem because of how they're wired.
Was there a particular like instance or something for you that triggered that realization?
I got tired of not being happy. Like I had a great job, from the outside looking in, everybody'd be like, man, he's got it. But like, I lived my life 18 hours a day of pretty much misery. And then my wife had to deal with me, and like, I wasn't like pleasant to be around, because like, I had all this stress in my life that was created by myself, and I had no boundaries anywhere. And it was just like, get it done. And it just eventually just came to the point where I was like, I cannot live the rest of my life like this. Like, I'm not meant to. Like, I am meant to perform at a high level, but I'm also meant to be happy. Like, there has to be some happiness in there. And that's what we have to figure out how to do. We have to figure out, how do we take our strengths and understand their strengths over here, but it's also a weakness over here. And you have to disattach those two things. And it's led me on quite the journey, like I said, over the past 4 years.
I bet. And I'm curious, for you, you said you weren't happy. But from the outside looking in, people are like, oh, he's crushing it. What for you allows you to be happy now? Like, what have been the changes for you to say like, oh, I'm happy now because this is in my life now?
Well, 4 years, not long into this journey, I sold everything. Me and my wife did, and we moved from up north down to the coast to live on the ocean. We have built our life around what makes us happy. So when I'm not necessarily working, I still work a lot, because that's just what it is. Like, we work a lot. But I've created, like, I take my son to school every morning, me and my wife, and then go to the gym, and then I work all day. And if I stop working, we can go walk the beach. We can do whatever. We have built the stuff that we enjoy and we love into a life to be able to, at an instant, I can stop doing what I'm doing and I don't have to do a whole lot to be doing something I love to do.
Yeah. And I think that's what most business owners want. And it's going to be different for everybody. But I think that's like, I'm becoming more clear on what people are wanting, that craving, because yeah, I said business coach, like, business coach, like there's a lot, but like there's more to it than that. And I think there's like this theme of freedom. It's like we built it, we're wanting to be business owners because we want more control, we want more freedom. And I think a lot of that comes down to time freedom, be able to spend time the way we want to spend time. And I think that's what's so hard is, in order to get there, you need to sacrifice, you need to work really hard, but we need to change the way we work and we need to change our definition of success. And that's why conversations like these are great, because often we see out there the romanticized version of what we think we want. It's like this huge business exit, this big, huge sale. Like there's all these big things in the media. It's like, what is it that people actually want? They want to be able to pick their kids up from daycare. They want to spend more time. They want to have 2 weeks off and go on vacation without worrying that their business is going to crumple. It's like, how do we work to get that figured out and have that be the goal if that's what you want it to be, and find that freedom. So it's going to be different for everybody, but I think that's what's so interesting is like, how do you craft and build your business around the life that you want? Because I think it usually happens the other way around.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you hit on something very important there, is that people look at the media, they look at the news, social media, they look at all, they never truly just disconnect and say, what is it that would really make me happy? Like, what would that look like? Because I mean, I'm building a business to have that big exit. Like, that's the end of the pipeline, but I can't be miserable while I'm doing that. Like, I had I have a really good friend that he always says, if you're building a business and it ends up in bankruptcy, divorce, people hate you, all you did was work the entire time, I don't care how much you sold that business for, it's a failure. Like, you have to, the only way to be successful, truly successful, is in every aspect of it. But we tend to just focus on one and we don't focus on everything else, because we look at, like you said, we're chasing this thing that we think is out there and it may or may not come. And what we have to do is everybody has to figure out what matters for them. What is their place to be? What is what makes them happy, and then build around that.
And it's hard. It requires work and time to figure that stuff out, I think. And often when I first start working with somebody, I'll ask them, what do you want? And it's like deer in headlights. It's like, what does success look like for you? It's terrible. It's like, it's such a big question, but it's such an important one. And I don't think it becomes clear right away. Like, it does take time to define that. And it's iterative, like it will change, but you need to have that North Star. Otherwise, yeah, life happens and you look back like, what happened? Like, that was not what I was expecting, which has been really interesting, because I've talked to a bunch of people that have sold their businesses or exited a business. And I had a small exit, not very big, but like, it's never what people expect. And I've coached a couple guys through selling their business, and the mental game associated with exiting and selling a business, people don't expect. Like, there's a lot more to it. And there's, yeah, it's just like, it's not talked about as much. You see the exit number and how awesome it looks. And then there's actually a lot of research into people feeling completely lost and like have no idea who they are because their business has been sold. So like, having these types of conversations to prepare people for what's on the other side, because it's not often what people expect.
Yeah, I think so. I've sold a business before as well. And I think what people don't think about is like I have a vision past the vision. Like what like it's not even a vision, it's a purpose. Like I am trying to get to this point so I can do this. Like there's not like that to me, the sale when I sell builder comms eventually one day, that's not the end point. To me, I almost look at that as that's the starting point for me to be able to now I can now just live my passion. I can just go work on what I'm passionate about. And that for me, that's helping veterans own businesses and being able to be the catalyst to be able to do that. But I think people put so much emphasis on just getting to the point where they sell the business. They never think about what happens after I sell this. I spent 20 years doing this, and then one day it's gone. But you have the money, and then you create a whole new circumstances of being lost.
Yeah. It sounds like you've done the work. Like you've built a better, healthier relationship with what it actually is, what it means, and like purpose beyond that, which is what a lot of people struggle with, I think.
Yeah, how do we get people to start to realize is that the what we perceive as the end is never the end. It's really just the start of the next journey.
I mean, it's a great question because I definitely focus a lot on self-actualization. So everything, like it never ends. It's not like there's a milestone in me becoming my best version of myself. And if I'm constantly moving it forward, there's always going to be something on the other side that I'm moving towards. And if that's what I'm focused on, it becomes less about the identity or the thing. It's more in service of this bigger growth of who I am and the impact that I could have. Um, and the business that I'm in right now and the business that I had before was just part of that journey.
Mm.
Um, but going back to your question around like, how do you help? I've actually thought about that a decent amount in that I think there does need to be more conversations around preparing for a business sale mentally and the mental game that comes with the burnout through due diligence and like the chaos that is, and then it all happens and then what? Um, but I don't think like it's so hard to know because when are you going to sell? That will change. So like getting two people at the right time when they're actually receptive to this is like I think it's a pretty small window because they're either focused on build, 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 or there's a small window where it's like either I need to sell because this isn't sustainable, or like I have a really great opportunity to sell. And it's a small window, and then you're in the work of exiting. So I don't know how you get it in front of people more other than just kind of like this, just like sharing this is the thing that I've noticed.
You have the conversations. I mean, there's a lot of guys just starting businesses knowing that private equity would buy them in 3 to 5 years, as long as they just build this foundation, and then they think that will fix everything, but it won't. I think like Hormozy talks about this this hit home with me is when he's like, I only play infinity games. My health, my relationship with my wife, my kids. This is stuff that like those are the games and it completely changed my perspective to where now like going to the gym is not like it hasn't been a short-term thing and it won't be a short-term thing. But I had like I'm building for the future. Everything I'm doing is playing towards a future better self, a better version of myself that I will one day get to, and just continuing to do that financially, mentally, physically, relationship wise. We have to look at this stuff as it's an infinity game. Like we have to just continue to just get better. Like you go take a bunch of steroids and you get jacked, it doesn't fit anything. It's just like it doesn't fix everything. It's just like the exit. Like you build through this stuff and you have this exit, and so you have this financial, but it's just part of the infinity game. that you're playing through your life to get you to where you're going. And you can't ever let stuff be the endpoints.
And what I love about that type of perspective is it changes how you interact and react to things daily. And I think that's why a lot of people struggle with things like yo-yo dieting or specific habits for health, but also just consistency in the business where they have huge ups and downs. Because if it like the weight gain thing, it's like, okay, I lost all this weight, cool. And then you kind of like do these targets. It's not like this long-term, never-ending thing that I'm just getting better at always. There's like this shorter term milestone, then you hit it, and then you maybe like fall back into bad habits, or it shifts, and it just shifts the nature of how you engage with it, and it makes it more iterative, it makes it more sustainable, it makes it more, I think, enjoyable too, when you look at it differently like that.
Yeah, and we can look at business the same way. It's how I look at, even though I have an end goal in mind of what I want to accomplish, maybe that doesn't come. But I build something that's profitable, something that continues to provide for my family. Like it's not it's more of a long-term thinking and not praying for the Hail Mary one day to happen. Like you're just, this is just what I do every day. Like it's just consistent. I know I'm making progress in the right direction. I might not see it 2 weeks down the road, but when you start looking at something every 6 months or annually, you start to get a completely different perspective on everything. Like I started taking a singular picture of myself every year on January 1st. And I don't take like pictures all the time unless I'm doing 75 hard. I just don't take pictures. And you can, there's such a drastic change in 1 year that you just can't realize unless you have this moment in time you can look back on, and you're not looking at it all the time. You just look at it when that time has come to look at it and compare the two. And you're like, hey, I'm moving in the right direction. And business is the same way. Relationships are the same way. We have to have some kind of benchmark that we're looking at and know we're moving forward, that we're getting better.
Well, and to touch on what you shared there that I think is tricky, and like going back to that notion of that hyperachiever, like driving for the next milestone, I think business can be tricky because there are lots of measures, and the measures are usually financial. So we're incentivized to see progress in numbers, and that just fuels that hyperachiever. What's the next thing? More growth, because as humans, we just love seeing progress. And I think what I've started to learn over the last couple of years working with clients is if I'm really like dumbing down what I do, it's helping clients see progress. Because progress, when you see progress, you're more motivated. When you're more motivated, you take more action. And in business, like we were talking about, freedom is hard to measure. It's hard to see progress towards some of that kind of stuff, and the actions and the things that you need to do in order to get there. And I think that's what I'm learning to get better at with clients, and for myself too, is how do we better recognize those gains, those wins, those changes in areas that are harder to measure and see. And that's why like having a coach or having a mentor or a friend or a peer that can actually like reflect back, you be like, hey, do you realize that 2 months ago you were complaining about this and you just told me this and it's totally different? It's like, oh yeah, like that is a huge change, but it's not as measurable in the same way as like a P&L statement sometimes,
Yeah.
which is tough. But like, how do you start to craft and look at your business and what you're wanting to create for your life in a way that is a little bit more trackable, is a little bit more help you be like the ability to see progress is there.
Yeah. One of the things I do and I don't mean to make this all about myself. It's just I live this. Like what you do is so important for people to figure out because I have never, once I started figuring this stuff out, my entire life changed. Like everything just changed. I use my calendar as like a personal P&L. Like I can go back through my calendar and see, like, am I taking time to go do the stuff that is important with my family? Am I not, or am I just on meetings all the time? Like, because that's something that's there. It's a living record that I'm creating every week, and it shows what exactly am I doing? So like from a freedom of time perspective, that allows me to look and say, I was able to go do this stuff. I'm making progress, or it's still there. Maybe it wasn't as good as last month, but I haven't completely abandoned ship on it. And it gives me a way to hold myself accountable because calendars don't lie.
For the most part, no. Depends on if you actually update it.
Well, as you could probably tell, I run a very
Yeah.
strict calendar.
Yeah. Which is important. And I think it's a huge skill that has to be learned. But like, again, like this is what I love jamming on and talking about is that whether it's the P&L statement, whether it's your calendar, whatever it is, what is that definition of success? And what's what's in the way of that? Like, what are the obstacles that are in the way of you achieving what you want to achieve? And how do we get to the root of those key things that if we pull that one lever, just opens the door for so much more? And figuring out what that is in somebody's business, it's awesome. Figuring out what that is for somebody as a business owner, just personally as they're interacting within their business, mindset wise, like, yeah, it's so much fun.
I bet, man. I bet you have an absolute amazing time and you help a lot of people with that. Because it's very important and it is fun to watch. Like now I've watched other people unlock this because they're asked, and I'll tell them like, this is what matters is what you want. And you have to figure that out and how to make it work in all aspects of your life. And watching people figure that out is absolutely amazing. You get to do that all the time. So kudos to you, man.
Yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, one that's near and dear to my heart. I have loved it. Fyfe, for everybody out there listening, if they wanted to connect with you, follow you, learn more about what you do, where's the best places for them to do that?
I'm most prevalent on LinkedIn right now. My websites are needing some updates, so they're in the middle of that. But yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, Fyfe.Barraclough. I'm going to try and get a bit more active on there. And then, yeah, YouTube. I think it's just Fyfe Barraclough or Fyfe.Barraclough. So
Awesome.
happy to chat with anybody. If they have
Yeah,
questions and
we'll
jam.
drop that stuff in the show notes for everybody. Fyfe, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag. Where I think we addressed like one of the most critical parts of building a business. It's you. You listening right here, right now, we're the roadblock in every aspect of our life. A lot of times we just look at it as we're the roadblock in business, but we're roadblocks in other aspects of our life. And until we holistically figure out how to fix that, we're always going to be chasing the same kind of stuff, the same problems. If you've ever wondered why it seems like you have kind of a trend, but the problems are a little bit different, but you don't ever not have problems somewhere in your life, it's because it's you. And what is a strength over here is a weakness over here. And what's a strength over here is a weakness over here. And we haven't quite figured out how to apply our appropriate strengths and weaknesses to the different aspects of our life, business, relationships. And that's what's amazing about what Fyfe is doing. Because I wish 4 years ago, I would have had somebody that could hit me upside the head and be like, hey, Ron, this is the kind of stuff you need to be thinking about. Or 10 years ago, Like, I mean, I'm 40. 20 years ago, when I was 20 years old, if somebody would have hit me upside the head and been like, if you fix this now, your entire trajectory for your life would change forever. Everything around how you think and what you do. And I couldn't even imagine where I would be if I would have had that conversation with myself 20 years prior. But that doesn't matter. I had it when I had it. And all I can do is be a testament to that. When you have that and you start fixing this stuff and you start working through it, it becomes amazing. And I would definitely, like I say on here all the time, I am a high component to having experts in your life. I got plenty of experts in my life that are a lot better at the things I'm trying to do than I am. And if I had the option to not have to figure this out myself before, I would have definitely taken the option to figure it out with somebody that understands it at a higher level than I do. So, construction champions, until next time, be the champion you were meant to be.